For the next half an hour or so, I'm delighted to say that we are going to talk about the upcoming Men's T20 World Cup, which kicks off on, and this is complicated, the 1st of June in the USA, but it is the 2nd of June in the UK. That's at 12:30 in the morning on the 2nd of June. This is complicated. Producers have a struggle with this. So it basically starts at 7:30 Dallas time, I think, or maybe even, sorry, I got that wrong, 6:30 Dallas time, which is 12:30 UK time on the 2nd of June. And it is the first time there's going to be a World Cup in America. It's quite extraordinary. It's going to kick off with a reprise of the oldest international fixture in any sport ever to have taken place, that between the USA and Canada, which was first took place in 1844. It's a two-innings game. Canada scored 145 runs. The USA scored 122 runs. I wouldn't be surprised if we get similar kind of runs in the USA v Canada 2020, which is the curtain raiser in Dallas. And I'm delighted to say that I have got some people to chew the cud and look at that tournament. Two of them are World Cup winners, Alex Hartley and Ebony Rainford-Brent. And one of them, well, I mean, if he got American citizenship, you never know. Atif Nawaz is alongside us.
I've touched a cricket ball before, so yeah.
You have, and you've played cricket out in the United States. So we're going to come to you and ask you about how cricket is thriving in the United States. There are three venues in the USA: Dallas, New York City, which will be in Long Island. It's a little way out of the main part of like Manhattan or Brooklyn, but it is still New York, and Fort Lauderdale. That's where matches will take place in the USA. And then England will be based predominantly in the Caribbean, well, entirely in the Caribbean, in Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia. There are matches also taking place in Guyana and Trinidad. It kicks off with a very big group stage. There are 4 groups of 5 teams. This has really been expanded to get more of the non-test playing nations playing. And the top 2 teams from each of those groups go through to something called the Super 8s, which is another group phase, second group phase. The top 2 of each of those groups go through to semi-finals in Guyana and Trinidad, and then it finishes with the Razzmatazz final at Bridgetown, Barbados on the 29th of June. So let's kick off. First of all, Atif, you've been out in America. You've seen how cricket is, well, it's taking off, I guess, Major League Cricket. But I've got to ask, I mean, it's an unknown quantity, this. India are playing Pakistan in a pop-up stadium. It's rather exciting because we're going to try to feel our way through the tournament, understand what the pitches are like, the attendances. What's your view?
I think it's a very clear indication from the ICC. They want to break that American market. America is a haven for sports and sports culture. Like, you know, all the 50 states of America are completely different in many regards, but the one thing that unites them is sports bars. They're everywhere. Huge sporting seasons. So Major League Baseball, each team plays close to 150 fixtures over a 6-month window, and it's not like, you know, if a game gets rained off, they reschedule it and they'll play that game as well, which is very rare, like games getting rained off in Major League Baseball. The basketball season, each team is playing 80 plus fixtures plus potentially playoffs as well. So American sports fans love consuming intense amounts of sport. They're always open to new sports as well. This is going to come in at a really good time, actually, this World Cup, because it's post-NBA season, and it doesn't have to compete with that NBA window. The Times are very much aiming for that time slot. They've put a lot of thought into how to market this tournament to America in particular. Like, the West Indies is a co-host, right? And it's where the business end of the tournament's going to happen, and it's got a cricketing lineage, and they've won 2 World Cups. But the focus, all the marketing, everything you keep hearing is America, America, America. There's a reason for that. It's because they want to break that market. It's no surprise that they wanted New York City to host the biggest fixture in cricket, India versus Pakistan, the most lucrative fixture, the $400 tickets, you know, all of it, the temporary stadium, Long Island, New York. Like, it's all quite calculated, and you understand why it is. They want to break that market. They want to expand cricket, and to be fair, their team is peaking quite well as well. We can talk about them in a bit, I suppose.
Well, no, let's talk about them now, because I'm going to take a look at that. It consists of India, Pakistan, Ireland, the USA, and Canada. It's a very well organised tournament, this. I think that those are exactly the 5 teams that should be playing predominantly in the USA, obviously the home nation, and Canada. And Ireland's a big Irish population in America. India and Pakistan speaks for itself. And you said that the USA are on a bit of a roll. They've beaten Bangladesh
in a
3-match series. In fact, they won it so quickly that they ended up resting 4 of their players. I mean, this is extraordinary. A lot of people won't know about the American side. We know Corey Anderson's playing. That was fairly big news, the New Zealand all-rounder.
Yeah.
But there are some other guys to look out for.
There's Ali Khan, the seam bowler, who's played for the Kolkata Knight Riders and the LA Knight Riders as well in the Major League Cricket. And there's Aaron Jones, who's a very talented wicketkeeper batter. Opening batter, aggressive, hard-hitting player. Really like him. Got to play with him actually once, and he's just, looking for that opportunity, because sort of America's national cricketers, they're not sort of celebrities, as it were. They're not known figures in the American sports fraternity, so they're still sort of built. They're chomping at the bit because they've played against the best players. A lot of people came to MLC, but the Americans
Major League Cricket.
Yeah, Major League Cricket. Sorry, just to explain, but a lot of cricketers from around the world, Pakistan, England, Jason Roy was over there. There were so many big names there in that tournament, and the Americans held in. They showed their mettle in that tournament. So I would expect them to do quite well. Remember, they're the only team that will have played, other than New York, where nobody's played any games because it's a brand new thing. They're the only team to have played in both stadiums. Their players will have played there multiple times over the last few years. It's a new look team as well, because there's a few big sort of omissions from the T20 World Cup squad. But I would back them to do quite well, like to win at least 2 or 3 games. And if I was going for really sort of like an aggressive one, right? Like one that's a bit out there, I think Team USA in the T20 World Cup will beat either India or Pakistan. I think they'll get one big win.
Can we clip that, please?
Yeah. Bookmark it.
Because if you think about it,
note right now.
Now you always see an upset in a T20 World Cup. It's a very frequent thing to happen.
Normally, Netherlands beating South Africa.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. But this or England, right? The Netherlands pull off loads of upsets. So did Ireland before you'd say you wouldn't be an upset anymore with Ireland, but Team America, they've had a lot of resource plugged into it. The investment with Major League Cricket was a very serious thing. Their system's professionalized. A lot of their players have had exposure of some of the best players. They know the conditions. They'll have the crowd backing them, I think. I know there's a big expat Indian Pakistani population, as you said, but I expect India or Pakistan to slip over that banana peel.
The other group, Alex Hartley, that's probably based in the United States, is a genuine group of death, because if you think about it, there's like 10 test-playing nations, and of course only 8 are going through the Super 8s, and Group D looks like a stinker, a real toughie. You don't want to be in this one. South Africa and the Netherlands, of course, and we were in Adelaide when that extraordinary match when Roloff van der Merwe took the catch to get rid of David Miller that put Pakistan through into the semi-finals. Had South Africa won that game against the Netherlands, which they were odds on to do, and remember the Pakistan fans didn't turn up to start with, and then news filtered through. The Netherlands are going to win, and suddenly the Adelaide Oval was filled with Dil Pakistan. It was an incredible day. But it's South Africa, the Netherlands, Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. That is a tough group.
That is a tough group, isn't it? And I think when you're looking at those teams, South Africa are by far the best team in that group, and they should semi-final. South Africa have this like mental block when it comes to World Cups. They're always getting knocked out against teams that they shouldn't, i.e. the Netherlands beating them out in Australia. South Africa were one of the best teams in that competition. When you look at South Africa going into this World Cup, they have every basis covered. They've got the seamers, they've got the spinners, and they've got the power hitting all the way through their middle order. But then when you look at Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, you think actually Sri Lanka have got 2 out-and-out seamers bowl like Malinga, which are so dangerous when it comes to T20 cricket. In Malinga, he's been in and around that team for a while now, coaching these players, and we've seen Sri Lanka play some decent cricket in the 50 over World Cup. Bangladesh as well. Yes, they've just lost to the USA, but they're a better team than that. They would think.
Well, they should have gone. They should have gone through in the World Cup that we covered in Australia, were it not for what felt like it was a very short rain delay, wasn't it? And Lytton Das came out to bat, and Bangladesh were actually ahead of the rate there. And had it kept raining
against India,
they would have gone through. India would have been out, but they did manage to get back out there. The very first ball, Lytton Das was run out, coming back for a second. India managed to get over the line for qualification. So it shows how precarious these groups are. Also great though in that group to see Nepal. Like cricket is absolutely fanatically followed in Nepal. You get massive crowds.
It's worth noting that Sandeep Lamichhane, who's probably their best player, is still waiting for visa to be approved to go to the US. It looks like it might not come through, so that'll be a huge blow to Nepal.
It will, but it's really about the fact that they are playing is just a magnificent. It's magnificent to see how cricket is taking off out there in Nepal. Now, everybody, I want to come to you for the England group. England, Australia,
Oof.
Namibia, Scotland, Oman. Now, look, we know England have slipped up against Scotland in a one-day international at the Grange not that long ago in the build-up to the 2019 World Cup. It's a terrific game. But on paper, you would say that they got a bit lucky there. Namibia have got some fine players. I still have David Visa.
They're my favourite team.
And they'll have Trumpelman.
They are my favourite team.
The great bowler Trumpelman. But there'll be no Picky Yafrance, I've been informed. It's unlikely he's going to play, so the greatest name in cricket will not play. But would you say England have got sort of a good end of that job?
I think they've got a lot of things working for them. So first of all, conditions. Let's be honest, if you were going to New York in a stadium that's built in 5 seconds, you'd be nervous about conditions. Whereas England are going to the West Indies, to the Caribbean, loads of experience. They were there just before Christmas. So in that sense of just knowing exactly what it comes, many know the CPL. They've got the players with the insights. They're good. I'd also throw in, obviously, Jofra Archer's back. Mark Wood is about, so they've got pace. If they need it on wickets that might be a little bit lackluster, there will be some spin. Plenty of spin options. So I think in terms of that, England are set. Where I still think England maybe might, obviously we were at the game yesterday, they played brilliantly, is just how much time have these players had together. Whereas you look at the 2 runs that England have been really successful, there was a lot of time with the team building up, learning their best players in best positions and et cetera. After the sort of disaster of India, it's still been quite choppy. Players been at the IPL, players coming back, Liam Livingstone just recovering from an injury. So it doesn't feel like when we look at those really successful tournaments England have had, they've got that smooth run in. So I think they're trying to get it right. Doesn't help there was a rained out game in the first T20. But look, I think all in all, they've got their key players. They've got everything in balance. They've got the right conditions. So I think they're set. So other than the big of Australia, I think if they go in with the right mindset, Rob Key's talked about they made mistakes. Matt Mott said they made mistakes before. They put the wrongs right. New psychologist. They should have got you in there, actually. I think you would have brought them a bit of vibes. But I think they're set up. Right, I think they're set up. But I just think that's my only concern. They just haven't had that smooth run that we've seen historically.
It's a really strong point, that, because in the last World Cup, they played 5 games against Pakistan. It was even 7. It was a lot. They played 7. Yeah. It was a 7-match bilateral series where Harry Brook actually made his name and forced his way into the squad. He didn't have a great tournament out in Australia, but
Jay Roy got cut, didn't he?
Jason Roy did get cut, and it was in that sort of that build-up, similar to the build-up that England had for the 2019 50 over World Cup, where they played a lot of games. But I guess let's just dwell quickly on their side. They've gone for really big hitters, haven't they, Alex? They've decided that there's no anchor anymore. I mean, you look at the top 7. And everybody's going hard. My one issue is lack of a left-hander, a top-order left-hander. So Les Moeen is put up there at 4, and I don't know if he is a 4, or they play both Moeen and Sam Curran, but they're both a bit lower order, aren't they? So you've got like a predominance of right-handers. Yeah,
they have, and I think you can't just pick a left-hander for the sake of wanting a left-hander. So they've gone with their strongest 15.
Says a left-hander.
I was actually right.
Oh yeah, you bet. Sorry, left-arm bowler.
It might have been better if I batted left-handed, but that's not a talking point.
We'll experiment with that later today. Yeah.
Second win career incoming. Anyway.
They've picked their best 15. They've picked their best team, and Moeen and Sam Curran obviously in that. We've seen Sam Curran open the batting in the IPL. We've seen him bat 3, 4. He is versatile. He can do it, but does he fit into their best 11 right this very second? I don't think so. You look at the team that England played yesterday. I think
this is the man who was the player of the tournament in the last T20 World Cup we're talking about.
He was.
And that's only 18 months ago.
Yeah, but I think England played their best 11 yesterday. When you look at the team that they picked, you can't be chopping and changing teams 3 games out of a World Cup starting. So for me, I think yes, there is that lack of a left-hander, but actually with Josh Butler playing how he is at the minute, I really don't see it being a massive problem.
A lot of spin options for England, Atif. I mean, I'm not sure if Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali necessarily play every game. The reason being that if they're going to play Livingston and Jacks, they've got there in Moeen, Livingston, Jacks 3 really serviceable options. But I guess what Adil Rashid gives you is the ball going away. I know Livingston does as well, but if you've got an out-and-out leggy, but with 4 spin bowling options in the West Indies, that's really handy, isn't it?
It is, and especially for a long tournament, right? You want to be able to rotate, especially some games won't be as important as other games. If you get off to a winning start and you know you've secured qualification to the next phase, it would be really handy to rest someone. What we know for a fact is that Moeen is going to play almost every game because Jos Buttler has said, I'm behind the stumps, right? I'm going to be keeping, which means Moeen has to play because he's got to be at mid-off and talk to the bowlers. They've got this symbiotic relationship. We saw it yesterday. We saw Moeen and Jos having a chat, deciding whether or not Liam Livingstone was going to get the ball, gave him the ball, and then extracted the big wicket of Fakhar Zaman that over, which sort of speaks to all angles now, doesn't it? You got Livingstone who executed the plan, you got Moeen and Jos who formulated the plan. Their relationship is quite telling. England have got a slightly difficult choice to make here because it's an embarrassment of riches. But I'm inclined to go along with Alex. Like, you've got a winning formula. If they go through this T20 series, win all 3 games, you shouldn't be changing anything, with the possible exception of Mark Wood.
That's what I was just about to say. First of all, I think Moeen's got to play because if Jos Buttler, he's talked about his third baby is coming throughout, right. So there is talk that Moeen will take over. So I think they're going to keep that tight. But you got to get, if you have Jofra Archer and Mark Wood charging in, I'm going to be honest though, I don't know who's coming out.
But
so.
do you have? Well, it would have to be Topley. I mean, the way you construct that.
Yeah, but I do like having a left armour with
exactly.
But it would be Topley. But
rotating subs.
Yeah, and the other question, I guess, is Jofra is only coming back now. Mark Wood, so maybe they will rotate that sort of pace option. But I would love to see in the big game Wood and Archer charging in.
The last thing England want is to bowl Archer into the ground again. So I think they're going to be careful when it comes
in fairness,
to him.
at least he can only bowl 4 overs. It's not like go to New Zealand where he bowled 40, which really wasn't very helpful, as we know.
Although he does field with a lot of gusto still, so he throws himself around. There was a few instances yesterday at Edgbaston where
we were going, relax, relax.
But a lot of people with their hands over their faces when he's throwing himself, sliding on the boundary rope. I
saw that. It was quite alarming. And everybody had their heart in their mouth every time he actually did the right thing, which is crazy.
Yeah. They just want to wrap him up in cotton wool if they possibly can. But as you say, I think rotation is the key.
Can I just make an observation, though, that as you're describing the England team there, you're describing quite a brains trust that's been around a long time, the likes of Buttler and Livingston. We're seeing this a lot with the selections from the big squads, like the India, Australia. They are sticking with older players, aren't they? So likes of Jake Fraser-McGurk, we've all got off our seats looking at Jake Fraser-McGurk in the IPL and the Big Bash. He plays shots that no one else in the world can play, these ridiculous back foot drives over long off for 6, off the spinners. And yet, he's a travelling reserve.
Staggering.
But he doesn't get in the team because they are going with sort of more tried and trusted older players. And England, in a way, are doing the same thing. Does experience count? I'll ask you, Ebony. Does experience count for more, perhaps, than we are giving it credit in T20?
Yeah, I think it's handling pressure moments. It's knowing that somebody can. Ben Stokes, for example, you look at his actual stats, and on paper, actually, he's not as amazing as you say. But what he can do, because of his experience, because of his mindset, in key moments, a player like that, I know he's not going to the T20 World Cup, but just as an example, you can trust with his experience, with his ability to handle pressure, understanding of the game, knowing all the opposition and have faced them, you can back someone like that. So, you take Jos Buttler. Chris Jordan is back in. He's bowled at every phase of the game. He's played in all the conditions. So even though it's nice to have a young and up-and-comer, until you know they can do that when that pressure is on, it leaves you with a bit of doubt. And I think where you want to be if you're Jos Buttler is just be able to go, Moeen, you know what to do here. I don't even have to tell you, actually, you know what to do. Joff, you know what to do. That sort of experience. And if you can have a couple, so you'd say to an extent, Will Jacks is not as experienced as others, but you see his performance in the IPL, in the 100, all of that. He's seen at high end of pressure, he's been able to deliver. So there's no doubt you just don't want to risk it at the wrong moment. And maybe you blood them for the next tournament. There's so many tournaments coming now, thick and fast, every 2 years, every year almost is an ICC championship. So you've got time to see. I can see why. Just keep it simple. Go to your tried and tested.
Contrasting styles, though, aren't there, Alex? I mean, when we've been watching the IPL, we got so used to seeing 220, 230, but that's where you've got this sub-rule. Now, England have gone in with a side that looks like it just going to keep coming at you hard, as if they're playing actually an IPL style of cricket, a Kolkata Knight Riders method, a Sunrisers Hyderabad method. Pakistan, on the other hand, they still, and to a degree India, they feel like sides who think that, well, 20 overs is a fairly long time. Someone like Babar Azam can anchor the innings. Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan may not go off at 11, 12 and over, but you feel that England will. So it's a high-risk approach in a tournament where one failure and you're out.
Yeah, it is, but also then you know when you need to rein it in. You know, you've got that experience. You've got the Moeen Ali's coming in the middle order. You've got Joss Buttler that if he's still there, he will rein it in. Or actually, what you see yesterday is they get off to a flyer. Butler's still there. He is the one that keeps going. Everyone else then just gets him on strike and rotate. So, you know, I think watching Pakistan for me is a really strange one. I think Babar Azam's strike rate and Rizwan are both higher in the power play than they are out the power play. They both slow down when the field goes out, especially Rizwan. And having spent a little bit of time with, you know, certain players in the Pakistan team, they're still trying to figure out their formula. As we saw yesterday, you know, they've changed up. The Babar and Rizzi aren't both opening anymore. You know, they're going, right, we need a power hitter at the top. Whereas England, you pretty much know who's coming in when and what their roles are, where other teams I still feel like are trying to figure it out.
Who are the explosive batters? Because you were out at the PSL, you were coaching the Multan Sultans. We know about their big names, and we know that they always manage to provide a whole bunch of fast bowlers, Shaheen Shah Afridi, for example, Haris Rauf. But who are their sort of really big power hitters that might surprise us in the middle order?
Yeah, I think for me, with Multan we had Iftikhar Ahmed, and his strike rate was 300. And in Pakistan, the ball doesn't bounce as much. It comes out probably pretty similar to the West Indies, where the ball won't bounce as much. His strike rate was 300. We utilised him. He would only come in after 17 overs, and he would be there for the last 3 overs, and he would quite often get 40 off like 9, 10, 11 balls. Like, this is the sort of person that goes in and whacks it. The thing when he plays for Pakistan is he comes in much earlier. He's coming in with like 7 overs to go, 6 overs to go, and he's trying to find his feet and figure out how to bat in those situations. Azam Khan, the wicket keeper,
Yep.
There are obviously going to be questions about his fitness and actually the effect that he has on the rest of the team, but he is also a player that's going to get you 25 off 9 balls. He's going to change the game in a matter of minutes, but the other batters aren't going to get their reward for hitting the ball into the deep and getting their 2s, because it's always going to be 1 when he's at the crease. So I think with those teams, and we saw Faka yesterday, he was amazing.
Well, I was just about to say, watching Faka yesterday, and I know I was going to ask you, Atif, because Faka Zaman, for me, turned that game into a game for England. He came in when Pakistan was struggling. I think they were like 13 for 2.
Yeah.
But the way he just got on with it, dominated the bowl, it freed up the whole innings. And I'm just wondering, I know he's coming in at 4. We know how good he is. Is he someone worth just opening with and letting him set that tone? I know there's Ayub at the top. He's got left-handers in play. But is that a player that could go to the top and just give that power play impetus, or do you see him staying at 4?
I think he'll stay at 4. It's like Alex said. I think it's like the Pakistan cricket team is like a teenager going through puberty almost, right? They're just trying to work out what goes where and when, if that makes any sense,
it does,
right?
sort of,
so
yeah,
like they've
careful.
got, so of course, so you got Babar and Rizwan, who opened for many years for Pakistan, right? They were very successful. They got them to a World Cup final. They got them to a World Cup semi-final the previous year.
Safe right now.
Well, their thing was, all right, we're not going to lose. We're going to keep wickets in hand. So we're going to we're going to try and get 45 off the power play and keep wickets in hand. That's what Pakistan used to want to do. But with the way the game has changed and with the way the PSL's evolved, and you get these big totals and flat pitches, so they okay, no, we need to play a more attacking cricket, but we still want to have that check and balance in play, because Babar and Rizwan, like, they're very reliable. So let's alternate them. You throw Saim Ayub at the top, who's got a terrific record in domestic cricket. Very, very exciting player to watch. Had a great run with Peshawar in this year's PSL. He's not translated that to the international stage yet.
He was good, though. He was really good. He was one of the ones in a meeting you go, right, what are the plans for this batter?
He's very exciting. He's very aggressive and, like, just a fearless player. And at some stage, that will translate to the international stage. It's very clear that the PCB have backed him, and they've decided he's our guy. So he's going to open the batting with Rizwan. Then you got Babar coming in at 3 and Fakhr at 4. So you can see it's like a a similar player replacing a similar kind of player. It's the 4, 5, and 6 where Pakistan 5, 6, and 7 where Pakistan have struggled to nail down who they want. Was it going to be Mohammad Haris? Is it going to be Iftikhar? There was Khushdil Shah not too long ago in the reckoning for that spot. They've settled, it seems, on Azam, Iftikhar, and Imad. I think they get their batting order wrong a little bit. I feel like Imad should have come in ahead of Iftikhar yesterday so they could replicate that PSL feel. But they're working it out. And so, this is typically Pakistan. They might still go really deep in this tournament. But when you look at the current stage of development in the modern age of T20 cricket, I would say they're a little bit behind some of the other countries.
Well, those are the last two finalists, England and Pakistan. The previous two finalists in the UAE were Australia and New Zealand. Australia are in England's group, and they've got high-quality, high-class players. Travis Head has come into some incredible form in the IPL. Mitchell Stark's the most expensive player in IPL history. Hasn't had a really good IPL.
He's had a shocking tournament.
He's had a shocking tournament, although he's come good towards the back end.
Do you know what it is? It's because his pockets are so full, he can't run in.
But I don't know. I don't know quite why Australia don't quite feel like winners to me, and I can't quite put my finger on what precisely it is.
You look down at when they've played as a unit. It's been a long time. As a unit, they haven't played for a long time, which I think is important. I think it is. I know it's great that everyone's bouncing around in all these leagues, getting paid as superstars, and you know that individuals can perform. But as a unit, they haven't played as a unit since March. That was Test cricket, so it just kind of takes that edge off for me. See, you normally like to see what's the rhythm of a side moving into a big tournament. They don't have that. So look, there's no doubt they've got the players coming. They're just an incredible squad. But I think that is something to be conscious of. They're just going to kind of hit the ground running without that real momentum.
But they have also made it up, haven't they? You look at the last 50 over World Cup. They began atrociously. Everyone said they wrote them off, and they did what Australia do.
Yeah.
They came through good at the end, and some incredible innings from the likes of Glenn Maxwell, and then to win that final in the Narendra Modi Stadium look, it's T20. Anyone can get through, and they're going to be a threat. And they're in England's group. The remainder of England's group, just to remind you, Namibia, Scotland, and Oman. Scotland. It's a great tournament for them. Namibia, we've seen them a lot in T20s, and they can pull off upsets. Oman, probably the sort of unknown quantity in that group. But it feels like the top two should go through there. The group we haven't looked at yet contains New Zealand, who were finalists in the previous T20 World Cup before England won against Australia. The West Indies, Afghanistan, Uganda, and Papua New Guinea. So, that's awkward, isn't it? The hosts are in quite a tricky group there. New Zealand perennially make it through somehow to semi-finals without quite making that next step. They've got a lot of players, a lot of IPL experience. The West Indies are at home, and they should take a lot from that. Let's look at the hosts first, Alex.
The West Indies, for me, are a really funny team. In the previous T20 World Cup, they were out in the Super 12s or before the Super 8s, whatever it was called. They were awful. They were
dreadful, weren't they?
They were. Well, as soon as we turned up to Hobart and it was cold and miserable, I remember saying they won't turn up because they won't enjoy these conditions, and they didn't. No, they didn't look interested. They were actually the worst team that I saw in that competition by far. However, it seems to have given them that kick up the backside that they needed, because they've started to turn things around. Obviously, England went over and played them and lost against the West Indies. They've recalled a couple of players. They've refreshened certain areas of their coaching staff, and I just think now they're sort of, for me, going back to the team where they could be dangerous, and especially at home in home conditions.
Really big hitters, haven't they? Really big hitters. They got Nicholas Pooran, they got Rodman Powell, Romario Shepherd. These guys have been playing a lot of IPL. They are a serious threat, aren't they, at home?
Yeah, I think I was over in Barbados, actually, and just, you're right, there's something about, I was watching, I wasn't just on a general jolly.
So you never know with you, Ebbs.
True, I do like holiday. But I think Alex is right. It's a weird thing to say, but you get a feeling. It's like you're around the environment. I had a chance to speak to a number of the staff behind the scenes, and you can just feel that there was that sort of click coming back in. And I feel that they've got fresh new players coming through. They've got the experience, so they've kind of got a lot to work with. Conditions at home, that's really important. It means that they know exactly the dimensions, the angles of the ground. So I think you're right, Alex. I think they could provide a bit of a handful. And they're also that sort of team that they kind of enjoy the occasion. Like they kind of get up for it when the crowds are going to be up for it, the swagger's going to be on, it's at home, USA. And I think they kind of actually lean into that side of it. So I think there's going to be a bit of spectacle on where they're going to bring their best selves.
New Zealand?
Always turn up, don't they? They always find a way.
It's quite bizarre, isn't it? I mean, because
if you look at their team, if you look at their squad, you go, oh, they're not the best squad. But actually, they all have a role and they all fit together and they just compete.
Yeah, but they're missing Corey Anderson though. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough.
Well, I tell you who they will have. They'll have Daryl Mitchell, who is one of the most underrated players in world cricket, and they have some explosive openers, but they also have some brilliant T20 bowlers. And they operate as a team. They always go under the radar because it's almost as if they don't feel pressure. Like they're not getting a lot of pressure from their home fans. That the expectation levels are always very level, and they always at least meet them.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things. It's that, when you look at teams like India, Pakistan, England, Australia, the press, the media, the amount of attention, the focus, the micro-analysis of every movement that they make, it is intense, and it's another layer to deal with, which doesn't happen as often in New Zealand. Of course, they're invested in their cricket, but there is that sort of more laid-back approach a little bit, of that, like, these guys are very dependable. They do have their stars, their fiery characters. I expect to see Lockie Ferguson do very well in those conditions against the teams that he's playing against, because, like, this is serious pace, right? Which historically has done quite well in those conditions. So I think I'd like to see. I wouldn't want to rule them out. I think West Indies will come through their group just because of that home support, just because of the atmosphere. I think home advantage in those conditions is really underrated. So I expect.
So you think it would probably be between Afghanistan, who can do anything on their day, and we saw them nearly pull off, which wouldn't really have been an upset, against Australia in Mumbai. Very nearly, should have won that game in a 50-over World Cup. So if you can do it in a 50-over World Cup, you can definitely do it in a T20 World Cup. The team we have left, well, I have left till the end, is one that I want to dwell on a little bit, and it is India, because India, are baffling, aren't they? And you can feel the pressure. When we were out in India for the World Cup, you could feel the pressure and the weight of expectation, and they won every game, and they won them all really quite comfortably. They were not really tested.
It was always going to happen.
And they got to the final and they lost. Now, T20 is a different beast, but I thought one of the most eye-opening games of cricket I've ever witnessed was England's victory over India at Adelaide in the semi-final. And I remember India was 60-odd for 2 off 10, and they made it up to about 170 something thanks to Hardik Pandya, and the Indian journalists there were absolutely delighted, and they thought, well, that's it, we've won the game easily. Hales and Butler won the game on their own with 4 overs to spare, won by 10 wickets. And what occurred to me was that actually India have got all the advantages. They've got a massive cricketing economy, they've got the biggest T20 domestic tournament in the world by a mile, but it's also their Achilles heel, because when we were in Adelaide, what we noticed was that they didn't really adapt to these different conditions, because Indian players do not play abroad, and England's players, I mean, you could call them mercenaries if you like. Actually, I'd like to think of them as well-travelled professionals who have played in a whole variety of different conditions, and I thought that showed. India didn't have that experience, weirdly.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be their downfall moving forward. And it's only a matter of time until India win a World Cup, an ICC event. It will happen. We're waiting for it in the women's game as well. It is going to happen. It's just when. But with the men, they don't play outside of India, so it takes them longer to adapt to conditions. And you can't just come back from the IPL where 240 is a par score and expect that to be the same in the West Indies. 170 in the West Indies could be a winning score. It depends on the type of pitch that you're playing on. So it could take them longer to adapt, by which stage, is it too late? Are they already out? Have they lost too many games? They got an easier group, yep, fine. But actually, I think when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of a tournament, like we saw in Australia, it shows that they'd never ever play abroad.
They're going to play in the US, and if they do get through, which you'd expect them to from that group, they then have to go all the way over to the Caribbean, where there'll be plentiful sides who have got experience of those conditions. And you, Ebony, talked about how you think it's important for a group to be close together and tightly knit. The Indians, again, because they're playing IPL, the final is today as we speak, so they'll have no chance to have any warm-ups really, get together as a group. And they've also got the problem of how do you select when you've got such riches? You know, you've got some people going, you've got to pick Ryan Parag because he's got over 500 runs in this, and then you've got others saying, no, you've got to stick with the older, more trusted players, Rohit Sharmas of this world, Virat Kohli. So they've got experience, they've got a lot of noise, but they do have, for me, in world cricket, the cheat code, Jasprit Bumrah.
Yeah, look, best bowler in the world by miles, fact. Moves the balls, pace, everything you want. Look, I still think they're going to have a lot of pressure in America because there's a lot of money. I'm going to a number of events. I'm heading out to New York.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. Working on the World Cup. I'm not on a jolly. I'm actually working quite a few hours a day,
You
Dan.
say that a lot about various places. I'm starting to wonder.
Working.
Yeah, I was working in the Maldives.
Actually, when that day happens, you'll be with me, don't worry.
Take the laptop, it's working.
But there's a lot. The other thing that we're missing is, like, there is a lot of Indian pressure in America. What I mean is there's a lot of Indian investment going in. All the fans that are picking up tickets are Indian. That they're not moving away from that pressure cooker. They're not going to slip under the radar like New Zealand. They're going to a fanatical sporting town with fanatical sporting people, and I think they're going to end up having that. So they've got to deal with a drop-in pitch, navigate some of that, get their team together very quickly, and then bounce around to the West Indies. So they've got still some challenges to pull together. Anyway.
Okay, so a reminder, the T20 World Cup, it kicks off on the 1st of June in the United States, just after midnight on the 2nd of June in the UK. We've got an extended period, 4 groups with 5 teams in it. We're going to get to see some unfamiliar teams. It's going to be absolutely magnificent, taking place in Dallas, in New York, in Florida, and then across St. Lucia, Barbados, Antigua, Guyana, and Trinidad. The Super 8s phase will start on the 18th of June. And the top 2 teams from each of the 4 groups will play basically in 2 further groups to determine semi-finalists, with semi-finals on the 25th, 26th, and the final on the 29th, or 26th, 27th, and the final on the 29th. That's what it is. It's going to be a fascinating tournament. Really looking forward to it. Before we go, I'm going to put you all on the spot. And I'm not going to make you choose a winner, because I think winners is unfair. Because anything can happen on the day. I want your semi-finalists.
Oh.
And then your finalists.
England, India,
New Zealand.
Pakistan, West Indies.
Oh, where are you going?
Can that even happen?
That's to India. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to have New Zealand in there in the semi-finals alongside England, India, West Indies. The final, I have no clue.
I've left Australia. This is so hard.
Oh, no.
Both of you have left Australia out.
Okay, we've got
Australia.
it wrong already.
Australia, yeah.
I'm going to go Australia, England, India, Pakistan.
Ooh.
Australia, England, India, Pakistan. Well,
That'd be
Sounds
spicy.
more likely.
yeah.
That sounds quite good.
I just point out to you,
India/USA, obviously.
India/USA.
Of course,
I just point out to you that New Zealand are in every semi-final. I can't believe we don't know how, but they always are. Anyway, we'll see. It'll all kick off, as I say, on the 1st/2nd of June, and it's all crammed into 4 weeks of magnificent festival of fun. We're going to see new teams, new grounds, and new whatnots.